welcome to another episode of Creators Corner. My name is James Dale, and my next guest is Dr. Vangella Hazel Buchanan. How are you doing
That's
today?
a mouthful. I'm good. I'm good,
All
James.
right, that's
Thanks for
beautiful.
having me.
Heaven has blessed us to be here on this day. We are both healthy,
Yes.
and we are trying to inspire the nation to be the best versions of themselves. Mrs. Vangie, Dr. Buchanan is aka Queen Majesty, is an author, educator, publisher, and entrepreneur. She has graduated from Montego Bay High School for Girls and Micro University College in Jamaica, where she majored in art. In 1989, she migrated to the United States and was employed by American Airlines for 20 years. Pursuing higher education, she completed a bachelor's degree in English at Eastern Connecticut State University and a master's in communication at the University of Hartford, and a master's in English at Central Connecticut University, where she earned a doctorate in educational leadership in higher education. In 2018, she became an owner of a bookstore and publishing company, The Writery Inc., LLC, in Bloomfield, Connecticut, where she assists writers in achieving their dream of becoming authors. I want to ask you, how did you transition from working from American Airlines to becoming a writer and an educator?
Well, James, I've been a writer all my life,
Mhm.
so that was easy. I worked with American Airlines because at the time when I arrived in the U.S., that's the job I got,
Mhm.
and I stuck with it for 20 years. I was an instructor there,
Mhm.
and so, but becoming a writer, this is something I've always been doing. In fact, my first novel was published while I worked with American Airlines.
What was the novel, the name of that novel?
The novel is called Mariana,
Mhm.
and it is somewhat of a compilation of my parents' stories.
Mhm.
So my father worked with this couple, this white couple,
Mhm.
back in the day, and my mom worked in a great house.
Mhm.
And so the story of Mariana is my first effort at writing a novel,
Mhm.
and it's about a young woman, a young girl named Mariana,
Mhm.
who is brought to Jamaica somewhere in the 1930s thereabouts.
Way before my time.
Yeah, mine too. She's brought to Jamaica. She's married to this much older man,
Mhm.
and so she's brought to Jamaica to manage
Mhm.
his plantation.
Mhm.
However, you know how Jamaicans are. We don't listen to nobody.
Mhm.
And
Look at what we color.
and especially because Mariana is so young.
Mhm.
So it's like, oh, well, look a young girl,
Mhm.
right?
Who
And
should I
so,
talk to?
right, and so they were a little bit rebellious,
Mhm.
but the story is really about Mariana's journey,
Mhm.
because in the end, she falls in love with her husband's handyman,
Mhm.
and they have a child,
Mhm.
and of course, the child grows up to be a politician, a part of the Jamaican political scene.
Mhm.
So it kind of takes the reader through some of the political turmoil
Mhm.
that occurred in Jamaica in the 1930s,
Mhm.
with the Bustamante, the trade unions,
Mhm.
and the workers fighting for their rights and universal adult suffrage, things like that. And so it's a little glimpse into Jamaica's history,
Mhm.
while having a romance, somewhere in the background. But that was my first attempt, and so it connected my parents' journey,
Mhm.
even though they didn't know each other at that time until somewhere in the 50s.
Mhm.
But it connected their journeys
Right.
as two people who lived separate lives, but their experiences are very similar.
Came together. So
Mhm.
is that book still in publication?
It is still in publication.
Mhm.
It is available online at
Okay.
Amazon.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. So your bio states that you studied art. Do you have any world-renowned paintings out there in the world or in stores somewhere
Well,
that
let's see.
my audience could purchase and you can sign and it'll be worth millions of dollars?
It's interesting because when I started out as I went to Michael,
Mhm.
and I studied art, but I wasn't the greatest artist.
Mhm.
I had no idea what I was doing.
Mhm.
Art was really my second choice
Okay.
because English was really my first, but they didn't offer the English courses I wanted, so I took art. And so over the years I taught art, and then, I was writing in the meantime and publishing. But art was, I kind of lay dormant for a while. And then a couple of years ago, really literally, I rediscovered my art. And so I just, went on a kind of a binge, as it were. And but no, not yet. I don't have that renowned painting yet. But there's one in particular called Mayor's Way, which is the one I think I poured my heart into. And so but it's not for sale. It's not yet,
It's
not
your
yet.
personal
It's
thing.
my personal thing. But I do have my art for sale. People have bought my work, but I don't have anything that's I would consider famous. Not yet.
Okay.
It's getting there.
Okay. Well, it's not up to you to make things
Right.
famous. It's up to the audience to make it
Exactly.
famous.
It's getting there. It's
okay.
getting there.
What did you like better? Because you have experience as an artist, as a painter, or a writer. What process do you like better? Which one is more therapeutic for you?
I think wow, that's a good question. I think equally, because it depends on where I am. With my writing, I get absorbed in it because one of the interesting things about the way I write is my characters come to me and tell me their story, and so it flows when I'm writing, because I sit there and the story the story just keeps coming. With my art, it takes a little bit more effort, because I get frustrated because sometimes I can't control my outcome when it comes to my painting. But I realize that if I stick with it long enough, the painting will emerge.
Right.
So it is a more intense journey than my writing.
Right.
I pour a lot into art, and like I said, sometimes it gets frustrating.
Okay, so what part of the writing process do you like the most?
Wow. I love when I feel the story coming together, because most of the times, I don't sit and plot my story. I don't plan anything. A lot of people write from outlines. I can't. If I try that, it just stops. But what I do is I love when I see the story just coming together. Like, I'll be writing and not knowing where I'm going with it. And then all of a sudden I realize that, wow, it's talking to me, and so that's a part of the process I like. When I finally see it gelling and it's like, I can't stop. And so, but everybody has a different process.
Right.
This is just mine.
So as a writer and as a publisher, do you take away that writer's mind to edit other people's work, or do you adapt that principle when you edit in other people's work to see the overall vision of where their characters need to go?
When I edit someone's work, I try to keep that writer's voice. Because I know everyone, speaks differently. So when I'm editing, what I do is I put on my English teacher hat.
Okay.
And I forget about who I am and what I'd like to see. I mean, I will make recommendations. So if, for example, I think something's not working, maybe try something else, and I'll recommend that. But I don't change the author's voice. I like to keep that, but I try to approach it from a more clinical point of view, where this is the work that needs to be done, I need to clean it up. And so that's pretty much, I don't get my personality or my feelings. Sometimes I do actually get, but if I am editing a work that's really good, it's tough because I'm enjoying it so much that I forget to edit, and I've had a few pieces like that. But I try to keep my emotions out of it and not, take off that writer hat and approach it in terms of, I'm an English teacher. What am I looking for in
Right,
this?
you have to be impartial, and it's kind of tough, like, just
It's
like you say,
tough.
because I do editing, I dabble in editing as well, and there's this one piece that I have read from a client, and he gave me the latter chapters first, and it's so the story started from the end to the beginning, and I fell in love with the story, and I almost got into fisticuffs with the writer because I'm like, why would you allow this character to do this and do that? You know what I mean? So it's kind of difficult to do that because it kind of hinders the process because you will feel sometimes compelled to change certain aspects of the story where it's not your position, your place to do so. So it's kind of difficult. You know, you say that you were an educator. Do you have any students that you inspired that became writers themselves and published, or you helped them publish?
Yes, I mean that has been part of what I do. You know, a number of not a lot, but you know, I've encountered students who you know want to get this past year. You know, there was one student at the school that I teach. He had his first book published. You know, so I try to mentor. I think one of the things with students is that they tend to not see their ability as writers. I remember I had this one girl, she wrote a really good, engaging memoir. And I still use it in my teaching to show students a good example of what a memoir should be. And when I said to her, "This is great, then you did a one," she said, "Really? Oh, you know." So she never saw the writer in her. But I try to inspire my students to do that. And yes, I've had a few who have actually got to the point where they publish.
Do you know any of those books that your students publish? You can let the audience know.
There's one, Jared Burgess, I think. His book is a diary of it's a diary of Casey something. I can't remember the title right now. But his story is about it's written as a diary, and it's fictional, of course, but it's about a young man who meets, you know, the teenage romance thing, but then the girl gets sick, and so we get the teenage angst, we get the teenage inability to understand what really is going on, and so that's the one I can think of offhand.
And I know as an adult, and there's other adults out there in the world, we tend to forget how we were when we were kids, how innocent we were, and how our brain just went off on a tangent. And you will be surprised if you picked up your journals that you wrote in when you were a teenager and you had a crush in your first love.
I think I tore up mine.
If you didn't, it could have been a bestseller. Could have been a bestseller.
I don't think you'd want to read it.
Because I have 3 daughters, and my middle child, you know, she has a journal, and my wife, she did the carnal sin of reading her journal, and my daughter was crushed.
Oh,
how could you read my stuff? It's my personal thoughts. But there's some things that's in there, boy.
Oh my goodness.
But you know, people have to get that stuff out there, you know.
And it's part of your journey, a part of your healing sometimes. You know, journaling is good because it helps you to, sometimes you don't have anyone to really talk to about it. So if you kind of put it in the pages of a book, and sometimes you go back and you read it and you laugh at yourself, and oh my God, what was I thinking? It's all a part of it, but sometimes you just have to let it out.
Right. Was that a part of your lessons to budgeting writers out there to journal and try to get the information out of their head?
Yes, and sometimes that journal becomes that book. It doesn't have to, you know, you don't have to tell people everything about you. You can tell them what you want. You can choose how you tell your story. That's your power. But the journal can serve as a kind of almost like notes to telling your story. And so a lot of times when people journal,
Mhm.
again, it doesn't have to become a book.
Mhm.
It could be just your way of, and one of the things I discovered during COVID,
Mhm.
COVID was good for a lot of people in that sense, in that they were able to sit with themselves
Mhm.
and put something on paper. So I had a lot of people, a lot of customers
Mhm.
during COVID, because there were people who sat down and looked at their lives, and they were writing,
Right.
and they were writing these memoirs because they had a chance to pause
Mhm.
and think about themselves. So it is a good idea to journal. Not everybody believes in that,
Mhm.
but it's a good idea to journal, because something there might become the story that you write, or might inspire you to write that book. So it doesn't have to be publishing a journal. It could be an event or an incident in that journal that kind of sparks your imagination, and you write.
And that's a good
That's
exercise when you get the dreaded writer's block.
Yes.
And you can
Yes.
journal and you just jot down a whole bunch
Yeah.
of phrases and ideas on paper, and it gets you in the process of writing, so you can get those characters out of your brain.
I think a lot of times when it comes to writer's block, people tend to allow it to block them.
Mhm.
Like you said, like you suggested, just keep writing.
Mhm.
And sometimes it doesn't matter what you write. You don't have to, if you're working on a story, you don't have to write it every day. A lot of times they say write every day, but you don't have to write that particular story. Write something. Write something.
Get into the
And
habit of
because for
writing.
me, over the years, I've had projects simultaneously. I've been working on my book simultaneously. So I'm writing a story and I put it down. I have a story called Hibiscus Nights, and I just published it last year. But I was writing it a long time ago. It's been years. And then I went back to it and just finished it, So sometimes your imagination gets sparked at a different time, and you go back to something you wrote and you might finish
You
it.
add a piece.
I had another story called a book called My Father and Other Disasters, and I remember writing about maybe 100 pages of it and thought it was done. And one day I asked a friend, she's like, I used to write articles for the West Indian newspaper in Connecticut. And this young lady, she said, what do you have for me to read? Because she was reading all my stuff, And I said, okay, I have this. And she read it. And she came back to me and she said, finish it. And that pushed me to write almost every night. So almost every day I came with a new chapter for her, and we discussed it. And so that was the process in that writing. And in no time it was done, So you just have to keep writing something. You don't have to stick to that one book or manuscript you're working on. You just have to keep going.
Yeah, you gotta believe in the process. The process is good, and keep doing with exercise. Just like anything in your life, if you want to get healthy, in order for you to get healthy, you gotta be consistent, and you have to change your mindset and integrate whatever health benefits that you are including in your life everyday process. You can't just eat one apple and expect to be a uber health nut. You have to eat a whole bunch of apples and oranges
and make it a habit.
Yeah, make it a habit, right? So other than novels, do you have like pieces out there that you published before or after or during you came to this country?
In terms of, actually, when I started publishing before I came to America, I was, actually in high school, I was contributing my stories and poetry to our school magazine. So, people from school know me for that. When I was about maybe 18 to 20, thereabouts, probably about 20, I took a course at the University of the West Indies, and the professor was Mervyn Morris, who later became Jamaica's Poet Laureate, and he liked what I was doing. He loved my work, and he compared some of it to Somerset Maugham and Roald Dahl, and I'm like, really? And he said, why don't you go submit your work to the Gleaner? And that's what I did. So most Sundays I had a story or poem in the Sunday Gleaner.
Mm.
And because of that course, there were a number of us in the course who were new writers.
Mm-hmm.
And so what Mervyn Morris did was he said, we had a magazine called Focus, which was actually introduced by Edna Manley. She was part of that early days of, giving Caribbean writers an opportunity. So the magazine was called Focus. So he revived it.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my stories, Sugar Daddy, was included in that. And I, in the reviews, I was mentioned in the reviews of the book. And so I, that was one. And then a couple of years later, just before I came to the U.S., I had one of my stories called Baby published in New Writings from the Caribbean. And that was being used by the University of Virgin Islands. I remember one day calling Professor Waters, and she said, "Oh yeah, we're going into class now, and we're going to discuss your story." So that really felt good. And so before I came to America, I had some success, publishing my work. But then when I arrived, that was a different story.
You had to find work. You had to make ends meet.
Yes.
So that that experience, did that urge you to learn more about English and become a writer and an editor yourself, because you was on one side of the process? Did you like the whole process of submitting your work and being praised for your work and wanted to be on the other end? How did that work out? How do you transition mentally?
Good one. So when I arrived in the U.S., I discovered that a writer from the Caribbean, being a writer from the Caribbean, your work isn't necessarily accepted as is. And so I went through a process of just getting rejections everywhere I submitted. I was getting rejections, and I wasn't used to that. And so after a while, I realized that what I was writing, which was stories of folk from Jamaica, from the Caribbean, and those experiences, I realized that didn't really have a place here.
Right, didn't resonate.
Right, and so, the last rejection I got, all that was in that letter was a smiley face. And that is what pushed me to say, hey, who are you to tell me that my work is not good enough? So I started exploring self-publishing.
Okay.
And that's how I got into that. So I tried different ways of self-publishing, but, it was very expensive. So, people would ask me, how do you do it? Because there are so many other writers like myself who could not get their works published because it was all about rejection. That's all you were getting. So I decided, I'm going to help people to get their works out there. And so this is how I ended up starting my business, to help other writers get their word out there.
Right,
Yeah.
That's cool. So, honorable mention. You didn't mention this in your bio, but Optimal Gold Radio is your baby.
It's my baby.
So
It's my baby.
How did you come about
my
doing
goodness.
radio? How did that come about?
Right. So once I, established my publishing company, helping writers to get their works published, I thought about doing audiobooks.
Okay.
Right. So I thought about it, but I hadn't really, it hadn't gelled yet how to do it. So someone said to me one day, one of my clients said, you should do a radio station. And I said, yeah, I just want to do audiobooks. So the opportunity at that time came where someone had a radio station, and I had been co-host with Easy G.
Shout out to Easy G.
Easy
Big up yourself.
G.
Big up yourself.
I had been co-hosting with him on another station. And so someone offered us the opportunity to have a radio station. So we explored that. But it unfortunately didn't work out. We went to another radio station, and then that also did not work out, because for one thing, my goals for us, having a station did not coincide with theirs. So, I said, you know what, why not? So I explored how to do my own radio station, and that's it. I said, I I have to do my own. And I just set it up and boom, and we've been going strong for 2 years now.
That's great. That's great.
And what I love about it is that it gives me the opportunity to do what I want in terms of I interview authors, and other people in the community that you would not normally hear about. Artists, just people who don't have that opportunity to be in the mainstream. And so this is our little cozy place to get their voices out there. And I've enjoyed it. We're growing and it's just happening.
And this show, Creatives Corner, is on Optimal Radio, and I am one of those authors who needed a platform to catapult myself and to know who I am as an artiste.
Yes.
I'm sensitive as an artiste, and I know because we discussed this before. You had a show, an open mic show called Fire on the Bloom, that I got my first taste of performing in front of a crowd. I'm not going to include my experience going to the New Eurekan Cafe in New York, in Alphabet City. I performed a piece called Butter Soft, but that was when I was 17. I didn't know what I was doing, and I just wrote a piece for a crush that I had. I didn't think of myself as a writer. With Fire on the Bloom, I accepted the fact that I was a writer, and I wanted to pursue that as a career goal, because I have this passion for artistry. I have this passion for creation, and it soothed me. It was therapeutic. During the times when my father passed away, I used writing as a coping mechanism, and it made me feel good. And I understand that once you put your feelings down on paper, whether it's happiness or sadness or indifference or anything that you feel, and once you put it down on paper, it helps you grow. It helps you go blossom into another version of yourself, and I enjoyed that process. So performing at Fire on the Bloom, it actually put a fire into my belly, I wanted to publish, and I published my first book, Just Another Hopeful Fool in Love, and you were the first person to actually showcase my stuff, and you displayed my works in your bookstore. And I love to give people the flowers while they can still smell them. My father said that all the time. He said, "Women dead, men don't want no flowers. Don't want no flowers. No, women can't smell them." So that always stuck in my head. So I was able to got this opportunity to start Creatives Corner, on Optimal Radio Station, and that is to give creatives such as yourselves out there to showcase your talent, who are working a 9-to-5, but you have a passion for the artistry, and that is something that is your creativity. That's your way of expression. And I want to thank you for having a platform like this for people such as myself.
You are welcome.
That can express themselves.
I mean, that Fire on the Bloom was one of the most awesome things we ever did. I remember just watching all these young people coming in, doing their beats. We had keyboards and trumpet players, and they would just come in and do their beats and just
vibing. It was a good something that
needs
needs to start up again.
We need to do it again.
We gotta do it again.
We gotta do it again.
Because there's a lot more people out there that are artists that need a platform to jump off of. Because I'm standing on shoulders of giants such as yourself and Brother Gary and other people in the city of Hartford that you could walk by and you wouldn't even know that they have published works. You wouldn't even know that they're playwrights. You wouldn't even know that they have a radio station or anything like that. And 9 times out of 10 in our society, what we need to do is we need to talk to each other.
Yes.
We need to say good morning.
And this is part of what I want to do with the Writer Inc. When we were over at the other location, we were doing that. There was a buzzing community, but since we moved and then COVID, it was just, we need to get back to that. We need to get back to that because there, like you said, there's so many of us out there who don't get the chance to explore our talent because there's no outlet for it.
Right. Right. Some people are afraid. They fear of the rejection. You know what I mean? Nothing tried, nothing done.
Yeah.
I was always so told, and a closed mouth don't get fed. So if you don't tell people
Right.
what you want,
Mm-hmm.
if you don't train people how to respect you and treat you for your artistry, if you don't have the confidence
True.
within yourself, nobody else is going to have that confidence
Yes.
with you. I remember when I had the idea for my book. And I actually went the process of going through Amazon and self-publishing, and I got the book in hand, and I looked at it and I said, wow, I did this.
Yes.
I accomplished this.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And I went around and I did the old school way, and I opened up the yellow pages and went on social media, and I broadcasted it, and I called a whole bunch of people, and it was a mutual friend of yours and a driver that I called, and she recommended you because she said she don't have a platform to help me. And I remember going to your bookstore on the other side of Bloomfield, and we talked for 2 hours, and know each other for a can of paint.
Yes,
and we talked about Jamaica, we talked about writing, we talked about the experience of publishing, and it was a good thing to know that there is a kindred spirit, there's a like mind out there that gone through the process and bet on herself. You got to bet on yourself, and you got to take the plunge. You have to trust in the Almighty that it is the right thing. Win, lose, or draw. If you believe in something, it will come through fruition if you continue the journey. It's going to be a rough journey. It's not going to be easy. Nothing that is worth having, worth keeping, is ever going to be easy. If you find anything out there that's easy, you really don't respect it.
True.
You know,
That's
so
true.
if it's hard, you appreciate it a lot more. Pressure make diamonds. You know, if they made diamonds in a lab, it's not as worth as the diamond that Earth has took a whole bunch of years, millions of years to compress it down to make it, precious gems and rubies, it cuts any heavy metal out there, you know what I mean? And that is because it's the process. It took a long time. So you have to
make it,
put in the work, put in the time in yourself, and cultivate what makes you, you know. You are not your job. You are not the cashier at Stop and Shop. You are not your police officer. Anybody who is great, they're known for what they have as a passion, who they are as an individual. Cultivate that. Trust in yourself.
Yes, I endorse that. I endorse that. Too many of us don't explore who we are, explore our talents. You can't be afraid to explore. You know, it's you might, I enjoy doing that, but we don't explore it enough, and so you have to kind of be willing to take chances.
Right.
Fly on a wing and a prayer. You just gotta do it. And if it doesn't work out, hey, you move on to something else. That's what the journey is about. If you stick with just the 9 to 5 and explore nothing else, then at the end of the day, it's like, someone said, you have to kind of empty yourself. Whatever is inside of you, you have to empty it. There's a reason it's there, and it's to give. It's to give it. So you empty all your talents, use up yourself, and I believe in that.
Any great actor, any great playwright, any pillar in our society, like your Gandhi, your Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, they all dug within themselves, and they understood who they were as an individual first, before they went out there and tried to inspire other people to do the same. So you have to look within yourself, look at the man or the woman in the mirror, and build that foundation first, and say, okay, I am whole as an individual. I can inspire other people. I can bring forth my works. And don't be afraid to fail. There's a lot of other people out there that's going to tell you, discourage you and say, don't do that. You have a great 9 to 5. You are crazy for trying to be a dancer. You are crazy to try to be an actor. You are crazy to try to be a dancer. But if you act and you dance and you write and that makes you happy, put that effort in there.
Exactly.
Somebody's going to say, you know what? I like the cut of this person's jib, and I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, and I'm going to try to produce this individual so we all could be great.
Yes.
You know, once you are respectful in yourself, other people is going to respect you. Is there any works that you have that is in the process or previous publications that you would like my audience to know about so they can go out there and buy your works and read your story?
Right, most definitely. My favorite, apart from Mariana, which I talked about, my favorite novel is The Master's Daughter.
Okay.
For which I did a lot of research, you know, and then the sequel is The Master's Wife. And I'm working on The Master's Children. And basically, it is a story that's set in the 1700s forward in Jamaica. Of course, you know, that was a time of colonial rule. And it follows Felice, who is a mulatto, right? We call it mixed race now.
Half caste.
She's a mulatto. Because that's how she would have gone down in the records as a mulatto. So I still use that. And so her father decides that, you know, he's gonna take care of her, you know, get her trained and so on and so forth. But she's kind of caught in between because her father is the white plantation owner. Her mother obviously is a slave. So what do? You know, do you stay with your mother? So she's caught in between as a child. She wants to play with the kids because there are no other kids like her around. And so what does she do? So she's kind of caught. So she grows up, and so you know, it's time for her to get married. Who do you marry as a mulatto?
There's no identity.
Exactly. So right. But the characters that I really relate to are actually the ones who, you know, even though it's Felice's story, in the background, the enslaved people. There's Morgiana, which she's the one I love the most as a character. And so as we, you know, so that's the one that I'd love everyone to read, The Master's Daughter. And of course it's available on Amazon. And then The Master's Wife has a sequel. I guarantee you can't put it down. Right? And I'm working on The Master's Children. Because of course we know that, you know, for years, hundreds of years, people are fighting for freedom. And so it takes you through the generations to say, hey, one generation is here, it passes, another generation comes, it passes, and still people are not free. So it's just taking you through the whole idea that freedom came at a cost. It was hard fought, hard won. And so we need to respect our ancestors for their journey, what they did, so that we can be here.
And it's still a fight, because you have it's not physical slavery, it's mental slavery. And we have to be mindful that we don't get caught up in the hype of what social norms is and what is convenient and what is easy to gain, because it's a trap. You know, and we have to make sure that we continue with the identity that we know, and we don't have that identity crisis on who we should be. And if we learn our history, we won't repeat the mistakes from our predecessors, our ancestors. So you have the Writery Inc. Could you let my audience know if they are aspiring budgeting writers, where they can go to seek out your assistance?
Sure, yes. So the Writery Inc., that's INK, we are located in Bloomfield, Connecticut. We also have a website, www.thewriteryinc.com. You know, we assist writers to get their books published. We do the editing, proofreading, formatting, and give them assistance with publishing their books. So you can get in touch with us, 860-206-9965. That is our phone number. And of course, we, you know, We can have a conversation.
Yeah, yeah. So if you want your books published, you have a book out there, a journey out there, you can go to the Writery Inc. If you want to be entertained, you can go to Optima Gold Radio and tune into that.
Yeah, I think there's a big piece we're missing right here about Optima Gold Radio.
Okay.
And the skit. We have to talk about that.
Okay.
So we Easy G, of course, he came up with the idea of the skit, The Life and Times of Stella and Trevor.
Okay.
And it's the story of this couple that lives in Trelawney and, you know, the various things that they go through each day, on a daily basis. So, of course, I'm the voice of Stella. I don't look anything like Stella, but I'm the voice of Stella.
Yeah.
And, of course, Easy G is Trevor. And of course,
I do a whole bunch of characters.
Your characters is a whole list of characters that you do.
Again, it's an opportunity for myself to play different characters. It's an opportunity for myself and others like me to have a platform to express myself. So it's a great thing that you brought that up because it hones my thoughts of people needing an outlet.
Right.
You know, it confirms.
And did you know you could do this?
I did, but I didn't because you get trapped in the rat race of trying to earn a living and take care of your responsibilities, and you don't put any credence to your creative abilities because it sometimes don't pay the bills. You know, you put effort in the stuff that people chase the bag. You know what I mean? To use the modern terms of earning a living. So what I know within myself, given the opportunity of meeting you and people like Brother Gary and Rose Thompson and Dion and Doc and Dr. Jackie and those individuals out there that paved the way for myself. Laura from UConn, Barnes and Noble. They give people in this area an opportunity to showcase their talents, and I was able to be in these circles, you know, the Hartford Lit, and able to showcase my talent out there. So I'm a living testament that dreams can come true and will come true if you put the work in. You know, I started Creatives Corner, you know, on Optima Gold Radio, and if I didn't know you, how would I have known to start
and you know, that point you just made, I tell people education is one thing. It's good to have an education, but opportunity often takes precedence. You have to place yourself in places. It's not about using people. It's about putting yourself in places where an opportunity arises. You know, somebody's looking for someone to operate a camera, let's say, and you're not there. Somebody else is going to get that job. But if you are at that space, then you can say, hey, I can do that. And you never know where that might lead to. So you might have all the education in the world, but nobody's giving you opportunities. You have all the talent in the world, but you're not. You need to place yourself in those positions where you get those opportunities and take advantage of them. That's how the world goes around. That's true. That's true. Otherwise, you get stuck in this 9 to 5.
And people get all angry and they douse themselves in bottles of whiskey and coffee and all of these things and abuse their spouses. Don't abuse your spouse. Be a creative and put yourselves in these places to get an opportunity and be happy. You know, I have a smile on my face all the time. My wife tells me that I smile even in my dreams. You know, and it's not wet dreams.
Good.
I'm thinking about writing books.
She's laying there watching you. You're smiling.
So I thank you.
That's a good one for Stella and Trevor.
Yeah, it should be. It should be. I thank you for doing the show. I thank you for all you have done in our community. You have made an impact in a lot of people's lives, not just myself. And a lot of people out there have a voice and they have a product in hand in part of what you have done. First you did is you took a chance on yourself.
Yes.
And you've seen the results of taking that journey and putting that effort in. And you said, you know what, there's other people out there that's
you
like
have to
me.
reach back and reach out.
Right. And so they don't have to go through the same pitfalls as you, and those works could go out there. You know, there's a lot of horror stories with publication and people, just like you said, they don't get your work. And a lot of people out there who have publishing houses, who are publishers, they are not writers themselves. They just in the position of power, and they don't know what creativity is. They just looking for what sells, and not what the creation is, what the story, what the impact it is. And it's unfortunate that there's a lot of people out there that get discouraged, that don't get the opportunity to showcase their talents because they are deterred by people in positions.
Exactly. And so I feel it's my job to give a voice and an opportunity to people like those. To just, you know, it might not be a bestseller, but what is a bestseller anyway? And so I like to know, I love it when people come back to me and, you know, they have a new book, they're inspired to write, or they're saying, wow, my book is selling. You know, it doesn't always happen, but it gives me great satisfaction when I see somebody, like when I had that 10-year-old girl who came to me with all of her illustrations hand drawn, wanting to get her story out there. And we worked on it, and amazing. I mean, her book was published, and it was so exciting.
That's great.
Because I know when I was her age, I was writing stories. I had completed books. I don't know where they are now, but there was no outlet. I had them in boxes under the bed or somewhere, but there was no outlet for me to get my work published. So I was happy to work with her and get her work out there, you know? So that's part of my journey.
That's good. That's good. So on that note, I was going to ask if you have anything to say, but you said a mouthful.
I said a mouthful.
You said a mouthful.
Yeah, you have to shut me up sometimes.
No, that's good. That's good, because we want to inspire the people out there. And your words of wisdom is well received. You know, I receive it. I have my ears open all the time. You know, even though I am an adult, you know, I am an intern. I am a student of the world. I'm a student of the works. You know, I love the process. I love the journey, and I'm still in the learning process. And I'm not too old. I'm 42. I'm not too old to learn, and I don't take myself too serious. And I want to be bigger and better. As long as I have tomorrow, I'll be a better person in the morning. So I thank you for coming on the show. And this is the next episode of Creatives Corner, and tune in to the next one, and I'll see you then.